Yes, it's that time again as we get you ready for week 4 of the NFL season. I'm Johnny Montalbano, joined today by Nick Morgasen. Nick, good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a few days. How you doing roughing out the storm?
Yes, so folks, just to let you know, I live down here in South Carolina now. And in my 11 years of doing sports shows, whether it's been on the radio or here now on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff, I've never done a storm in the middle of a hurricane. And right now we are in the midst of Hurricane Ian here in South Carolina. Of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody in Florida who had to deal with this unbelievable storm. Sometimes that word's being used too much, but I watched the coverage this week and I saw what happened down there. It was like you almost couldn't even put it into words. I mean, I've watched hurricane coverage for years, and it's just was unbelievable. And we didn't know if the Chiefs Buccaneers game that is going to happen on Sunday night was going to happen down there in Tampa, but it will. We're going to get to that pick. We're going to get to We're going to get to all the picks here this week, and it's good to be back on. Unfortunately, I could not do my regular show Game On Tuesdays because yours truly lost his voice, and that was due to allergies. And if you've been watching the prior two shows, my voice was trending in the wrong direction, and the allergies have been just so bad down here. And hopefully that we don't have any damage or any major situations with Ian, but hopefully it does clear out the pollen, and I'll be back to normal for next show. But you know what? It's a football Friday, and I am here, and I'm looking forward to going through the picks with you. Maybe one of the reasons that my voice wasn't doing so well is because I'm not off to a great start in terms of picks this year. Another rough week last week. Hank and I both went 6-9-1, and that was even with picking the Bills and the Lions. So it just goes to show you the kind of week that it was. But it's just been that kind of year so far, Nick. I told you this stat before we started here. There have been 18 games through the first 3 weeks that have been decided by 3 points or less. And, when you're picking games against the spread, that can alter your win-loss record easily. But fortunately, we do this for fun. And so through 3 weeks, I am 19-28-1. And my co-host, Hank Indictor, is 23-24-1. And I was just looking through our picks before we started here. Hank and I differ on quite a few this week. Unlike last week when we only differed on 2 games, this week we differ on quite a few. And we're both off to a good start this week because we both did take the Bengals laying 3.5 against the Dolphins. And of course, we'll get into that game and all these games coming up on episode 27 of Game On next week. But Nick, nevertheless, let's do these picks while we're dealing with the midst of the hurricane. Kind of historic here, but that's how we roll. And interesting slate of games again this week. And when you look at the lines, there are only 3 games this week with lines that are 4 or more. So that just goes to show you where we are in the NFL. A lot of low-scoring, close games, and we'll see what kind of week this brings. But you ready to get it going?
Let's go. I'm ready. I need a
All right.
better week.
Absolutely, yes, and hopefully we all do. And we get it going early Sunday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern on the NFL Network in London. It's the Minnesota Vikings taking on the New Orleans Saints. It's a Kevin Kugler, Mark Sanchez, Laura Oakman, Jamie Erdahl special as the Vikings are 3.5-point favorites against what looks like Andy Dalton and the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of concerned with Jameis Winston the first couple of weeks. Now you have Andy Dalton. Maybe it gives them a better chance. I don't know. Kamara is injured. He does not look good. And he's had some fumbling issues the last couple of weeks. Like you were saying before before we came on here, Michael Thomas is out.
Yes.
Which I think is major. You don't have your number one target, or what should be your number one target. I also don't. I'm not a big fan of the London games. The London games are tough travel. But I'm going to stick with the favorite just because I'm going to take the safe bet and with the cover with the Vikings. That's what I did on my cover.
Yeah, and the Saints got to London early, so they were trying to dispel that notion. But the problem to me is with the Saints offense, and Jameis Winston's had problems, and now it doesn't look like he's going to play. No Michael Thomas is going to be there. I think that's a big deal. Another big deal to me in this matchup is the discipline of the Saints. So the Vikings have 13 total penalties through 3 weeks, and that's the second fewest in the NFL. The Saints have 28, which is tied for the second most. Look for that to be a big factor here, too. Also, Vikings need to have this game. I'm going to take Minnesota to win and cover, say, like 23-17 to get things going on Sunday. And my co-host, Hank Indictor, also taking the Vikings to win and cover in game number 1 Sunday. Game number 2, back here in the States, actually has become a sneaky fun game. It's an Andrew Catalan and Tiki Barber special on the NFL and CBS. It's the Cleveland Browns traveling to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons, and the Browns just a 1-point favorite, Nick.
This is kind of a crapshoot, in my opinion. Even though like it's going to be a somewhat decent game, we're talking about two quarterbacks that did you really think they were going to start at the beginning of this year? I totally did not think so.
No.
I mean, if I had a stick, I'm going to take the Browns just because I think technically they're the better team, but we've seen mental errors out of the Browns before, including in that Jets game where Nick Chubb kind of forgot to go down, which would have taken time off the clock. I don't like Mariota. I've been very public about that. I'm not a big Mariota guy. Even though they won last week, somehow in shocking fashion against the Seahawks, and we'll get to the Seahawks. The Seahawks are kind of confusing to me, but I'm just going to, I stuck with the Browns, so that's where I'm going to stay.
Yeah, while I think this is going to be a sneaky fun game is because not just it's not the quarterbacks, it's the running backs. Nick Chubb for the Browns and Cordell Patterson of the Falcons, both two of the top 3 rushers in the league so far this season. We don't know the status of Myles Garrett following the car accident. I think this is going to be actually a big game. If you're looking for one player on the receiving side for either of these teams, look for Kyle Pitts there in Atlanta. I think he has a chance to go off for a big game, and I'm gonna take upset special number 1 here. Give me the Atlanta Falcons plus the 1. Say like a 22-20 close game against the Cleveland Browns, because let's just stick on this close game mentality. So give me the Falcons plus 1. However, Hank disagrees. He's also going to go with you, Nick. He's going to take the Browns laying the 1 there in Atlanta. But I think it's going to be a sneaky fun game. I don't think the two quarterbacks will be throwing much, so it might be one of the quicker games of the week. But I think it could also be kind of close in the end. But let's, for my sake, take the Falcons plus the 1 in Atlanta. It's Ian Eagle, Charles Davis, and Evan Washburn on the NFL and CBS. And this is a good game this week. The Buffalo Bills trying to rebound off their loss against the Dolphins. They travel to Baltimore to take on Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. So it's a Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson special. And the Bills 3-point favorites in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I have my concerns about the Ravens a little bit offensively. That situation with Lamar, he was almost hurt last week. The contract situation is still a thing. I think he's playing hard. The Bills had an unfortunate loss last week, and everyone saw the viral video with Ken Dorsey throwing the headphones, and that was probably one of the funniest videos. It was seen over like 5 million times on social media. But I don't blame him. That was a bad loss, the way that game ended against the Dolphins last week. They should be 3-0 right now. I still like Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is going to be the MVP this year. I'm going to stick with the Bills. I think they're still the better team offensively and defensively.
I think this game could be the highest scoring game of the week when you look at it, because both teams' defenses are hurting. One's hurt a lot. The other one gets torched a lot. And Baltimore's allowed a league-high 95 total completions, 353-plus passing yards per game. I think that's going to provide opportunities for this Bills passing offense despite their injuries that they're dealing with. The Ravens running backs have not done much. They're on their 4th left tackle. Their run defense is struggling, and their rookies in the secondary, they're just getting totally picked upon. I think that's way too many flaws for the Bills to pick apart. I think they're going to bounce back here. I think they win and cover, say, like 35-30 against Lamar Jackson. Hank also is going to take the Bills to win and cover in this one. Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi special on the NFL on Fox, an NFC East matchup between the Washington Commanders and the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys. And Rush and the boys, 3.5-point favorites at home. Nick, I'll go here first. I trust Cooper Rush more than Carson Wentz. Is that crazy to say or what? But you look at the Cowboys defense, they make plays on every level. The Commanders have coughed up a 100-yard receiver in each of the first 3 weeks. So you could see CeeDee Lamb going off. I think Michael Gallup, who's making his return from a torn ACL, could do that. Maybe there's a way the Commanders make this interesting, but I hate to say this, but even that game Monday night against my Giants, I saw them do enough even in that one to show that they're still going to be in it. And, I declared after week 1, I said the Cowboys were done. I think that was a little bit premature. I'm going to take the Cowboys 23-16 to win and cover in Big D.
Actually, this game jumped down a half point, actually to 3.
Okay. Well,
But
that actually makes my pick even more comfortable. Then I'll still take Dallas minus the 3.
yeah, I mean, I've been very public about this too. Carson Wentz is a joke as a starting quarterback.
I have said that, yeah.
And I think he got sacked 9 times last week by the Eagles, which, by the way, the Eagles are probably one of the better teams in football right now, not just the NFC East.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The Commanders are banged up also, big time. Like, they have injury central. Their offense is confusing. Carson Wentz should not be a starting quarterback. This is, and I know we're talking about Cooper Rush and last week against the Giants, and somehow they managed to pull that game out against the Giants.
Yeah.
I'm taking the unsure thing, if that's what we're going to call it, with Cooper Rush. So yeah, I'm covering here because I don't like Carson Wentz at all.
Could be a lot of yards after the catch, a lot of yak for the Cowboys. But yeah, see, as a Giants fan, I'm hoping the Commanders win, but just as picking one here, I just don't see how they get it done. But Hank thinks they can get it done. He has the Commanders in an upset special here over the Cowboys. We can only hope, right? But it's just not a good matchup for the way the Commanders have been. And, I had some good picks last week. I mean, I did pick the Bills. I mean, I did take the Dolphins in an upset special. I took the Lions to cover. They did that. But this one was one of my worst ones last week. I was thinking the Commanders can cover 6.5 against the Eagles, and they were never in it from the start. That was not good, and I don't think they get it done here. So you and I are going to both take Dallas. Hank's going to take the Commanders in this one. It is, in fact, a Chris Myers, Robert Smith, and Jen Hale special here on the NFL on Fox as the Seattle Seahawks take on the Detroit Lions. Lions right now 4-point favorites, and Nick, I like the Lions. I think I picked them in every week so far, and I'm going to do it again this week, but this one actually scares me a little bit. And it's not that the Lions are not going to win, but are they going to cover? Because they are really banged up. Their offensive line looks like DeAndre Swift, their running back's not going to play. We know that Ahmad St. Brown is out. So if this was any other team, I actually would go the other way. But it's Geno Smith. It's a Seahawks defense that ranks in the bottom 2 in the league at plays and yards allowed per drive, despite not having to play a tough schedule so far. So availability is going to be a thing to watch. But that being said, I think the Lions still get this done by 2 scores. Give me the Lions to win and cover against the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, like I said a little before here, the Seahawks are confusing to me right now. I don't know what their game plan is. Geno Smith should not be starting. This might be just Jets PTSD coming out here. But yeah, Drew Lock needs to be starting at some point. And that's not even saying much because both quarterbacks are not great. They're wasting Lockett's talents as a wide receiver. I don't know why Pete Carroll is still there, because that team is technically rebuilding. Yeah, I'm taking the Lions to cover, even without St. Brown.
Yeah, Hank's also going to take the Lions to win and cover. But, those injuries, could you see the Seahawks backing in and losing by 3? I mean, that's what the Lions do here too. They do find a way to backdoor some ways. I mean, they were up 10 in the fourth quarter against the Vikings last week. But, again, this Seahawks team is not that good. I agree with you. They're tough to figure out. If this game was in Seattle, you might find a way to see the Seahawks cover it, but I just don't see it here. The Lions actually, while they're still rebuilding and going through some growing pains, actually showed you some life here these first few weeks, and I think they'll continue it despite these injuries in this one. All of a sudden, this game has become a very interesting one to watch with all the injuries as well. It's Beth Mowins, James Lofton, and Amanda Renner on the call on the NFL on CBS as the Los Angeles Chargers, who are now dealing with a lot of injuries. They travel to Houston to take on the Texans. Chargers are a 5-point favorite.
Yeah, I mean, even with all the injuries, and I think I saw good news that Justin Herbert is hopefully ready to go to play. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty much all you need to write at this point. I know Keenan Allen is out. I know he's probably not going to play. He's been an injury-prone player over the last couple of years. It's tough to tell what his statuses are because he's always getting hurt. I've always liked the Chargers. I just think their receiving core has been great. Their running is great. We're talking about the Texans here. This really should not be a discussion. The Chargers are going to cover.
Hank also is taking the Chargers to cover. I'll tell you, their injuries are actually a bit of a concern. Uh, just look like Herbert's recovering well, which is good. By the way, why Brandon Staley played him last week, I have absolutely no idea. That was one of the worst coaching decisions I've seen. Not
It
only
was 38-10. 38-10.
That's not only one of the worst coaching decisions of the week, it was one of the worst coaching decisions of the year so far. And
what happens if he got hurt major and he couldn't play the rest of the year?
I mean, that is why, Nick, when we did our football preview show, I told you and I told Tom Albano that the thing that may cost the Chargers this year is the coach. Because I think they actually are Super Bowl caliber team with the amount of talent they have on that team. I just worry about the coach. And you could say that about a lot of teams this year. And we've seen that with a bunch of teams already in the early going. But
you could say that about a certain Cincy team, maybe.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. That's another one too. But it's interesting because if Keenan Allen doesn't play, if they are dealing with other injuries, do they have enough weapons? They're, as a betting person, the Rams, the Chargers, they're 0-3 outright as a road favorite under Coach Brandon Staley. As tempting as this is to pick a total upset special, I'm not going to do it, but I will grab the 5 with Houston, maybe to get a backdoor cover and make this close. Because you know what? One thing about Houston, real quick, yeah, they're not the most talented team. Yes, Davis Mills has his struggles. Texans have been in almost every game so far in the early going.
I'll give them credit on that front, that they've played close games, but we're talking about Davis Mills.
Yeah, I mean, well, they were up big against the Colts week 1, and that ended up in a tie. They should have beaten the Bears last week. Bad turnover by Mills there in late, but
Mills is not a starting quarterback. That just goes to show you.
Agree, but they've been playing pretty well there for Lovie Smith, and I think they actually make this a game. Again, I don't think they win, but I think they definitely keep it within inside the 5. So give me the Texans plus 5 at home to at least cover, not win, but to at least cover. Well, somebody has to win in this AFC South showdown. The Tennessee Titans travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. It's an Adam Admin, Mark Schlereth, Christina Pink special on the NFL and Fox. The Colts, coming off their win against the Chiefs, they're back home, and they're 3.5-point favorites in this matchup.
This is just the battle of garbage. I mean, I said this on episode 154 of Empty the Bench. It's just the Colts have probably been the most disappointing team so far this year. Now, everyone thought when Matt Ryan came in, he was going to be the savior over, guess who? Carson Wentz. I mean, and the Titans, I can't explain the Titans. Everyone said that they were going to be great. You have top running back in the game. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was way better than Marcus Mariota, of all people, who was the quarterback. They've completely fallen apart. The Colts, you have Jonathan Taylor, the top running back in all the game, and you're not taking advantage. I mean, I remember my episode, I took the Titans plus 3.5 just because I don't trust the Matt Ryan and the Colts to be competitive.
So you're going to take Tennessee plus 3.5?
Yeah, because I don't think the Colts are a competitive team. I think they've just fallen apart.
Yeah, Hank's also taking the Colts plus 3.5. The Titans plus 3.5. He thinks the Colts win, but Tennessee covers it. Yeah, I disagree. The Colts have been a disappointment, but again, another thing from me, I'm not high on the Titans. Yes, they beat the Raiders last week. I don't know if that has to speak more about how bad the Raiders are right now.
That was the upset of the week last week, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. There was only a 2-point spread last week, and I guess maybe that's why, but the Raiders are going through their own woes right now. Tennessee, to me, again, I kind of trust more, and this goes back to what I was saying when we did the preview show. I trust the Colts system more than I trust the Titans. The Titans' offensive line still in shambles. This could be the spot where Derrick Henry goes off for 100 yards, but I still don't think it's going to be enough because
he's been a disappointment also.
And think about that. If Derrick Henry's not going to have a big year, and that may have to speak to the bad offensive line of the Titans, then, I mean, they're going to be in for a dreadful year. Their saving grace is this division where it might only take 7 wins to win it, which is why a lot of people are starting to all of a sudden like the Jaguars.
Oh, we'll get there.
And we're going to get there, yeah, because I think a lot of people are going crazy about that game, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Think about this. Colts have a -3 turnover margin, which is a crazy number when you think that they ranked first in this category last season and second in 2020. Ryan Tannehill, 3 interceptions through 3 games. It feels like he's thrown a lot more than that, right?
I know, right? Yeah.
If the Colts defense can somehow force turnovers and not commit them, then they're going to get this done. Look, I've said the Colts are going to win this division, and if that's the case, this is the game they have to get. And I think this is a game that Derrick Henry does go off for almost 100 yards, but I'm still taking the better team in this division, and that's the Colts. Give me Indy minus 3.5. Say they win 24-20 in this one. So someone in the AFC South has got to win, and I think they will just here. But I don't say that very confidently, but I'm still going to do that. So I'm going against the grain here. And then it's my game here on the NFL on Fox. It's Joe Davis, Daryl Moose Johnson, and Pam Oliver as the Chicago Bears travel to MetLife. Giants on a short week coming off that tough Monday night loss against the Cowboys. Big Blue favorites once again here. They are 2.5-point favorite against Justin Fields and the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, I said this to Johnny before we came on here. I think the Giants are in for a rude awakening, and I don't mean because of the game. I think that they're still coming off a reeling loss against the Cowboys.
Yeah, it was a tough one on Monday night for sure.
They have a lot to figure out. I mean, Sterling Shepard also out for the year. That's a rough injury from the wide receiver core that was already banged up. We don't know what the situation is with Galladay, whether he's going to play. Is he not going to play? Is he going to demand out? Are the Giants on the hook for all that money? And also questions about Kadarius Toney is another issue.
Yep.
I mean, and then I look at the Bears, and I'm not saying they're great by any means, but I just think it's a tough offense coming in. The Giants are not good against the run. They're really not.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with my pick. We had the line at 2.5. I'm still going to stick with it and take them +3.
Yeah. The thing is, you look at their rushing numbers, and there's always one big run. It looks like that they face, whether it was McCaffrey or with Derrick Henry, but most of the time they've actually been able to shut down the run. Now, that's going to be key this week because I don't think Justin Fields is going to be throwing the ball at all a lot. I mean, they're basically playing like a wishbone style offense there in Chicago. I mean, look,
Wait, you mean because they're wishing for offense, you mean?
Well, no, because if you look at it, so David Montgomery gets hurt last week. They bring in their backup running back, and he runs for like 150 yards. We don't really know what the true potential of Justin Fields is because the Bears are holding him back. I mean, they're running an offense like you would see in an Army-Navy game where it's basically all runs and maybe 5 throws throughout the game.
Right.
So the question is, can running an offense like that 1950s wishbone style be successful? Their running attack's been a success, but for the most part, the Giants have been able to keep running backs in check. There have been a couple of big runs here. To me, though, Nick, I mean, it comes down to a talent level, and the Giants have to win this game, and I think they're the more talented team. I mean, I think Saquon Barkley's better than anybody that the Bears are throwing out there. I still do like, I like Bellinger, the tight end. The Giants, to me, I mean, they've got enough to compete, and I think they're going to get this one done. And I actually think they're going to put a few more points than in weeks past. 24-13, Giants win and cover in what is really kind of a swing game for them when you look at it, because after this week, then they go to London to play the Packers, and then they I believe after that play the Seahawks in Seattle, which we know is not easy as well. So a huge swing game. So I am going to take the Giants to win and cover, and Hank is going to do the same thing as well.
They have a tougher schedule coming down the stretch. Now, my co-host Tom Albano made a bold statement about Justin Fields last week.
Yeah, let me hear this.
Saying that he thinks he's going to be out of the league. And I said, it's a little too soon to really be making a call like that, considering it's the first couple of years, but I can kind of understand it because Justin Fields does not have the wherewithal to make good throws. So then when he rushes the football, they're going to stack the box. So I guess it kind of makes sense in that regard.
I think the Bears are one of the worst teams in the league. Next NFL draft is supposedly a very quarterback-heavy draft. I see where he's going at with that. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Look, but we don't know because I think the Bears are holding back his true full potential too. We don't really know what it is because, like they said, how many times is he going to really throw the ball in this one? Unless they fall behind early on. So we'll have to see. But a critical game for the Giants, and I think they do get this one done to go to 3-1. And if not, if you go 2-2 in your first 4 games, I mean, let's also remember too, we might have to temper down expectations because the Giants are still a rebuilding kind of team. But
I just think the fans just got overexcited. Giant fans, I'm talking about when they started 2-0 and the potential going 3-0. Like, people need to realize, like, okay, you won the first 2 games, you had a chance to win against the Cowboys to go 3-0, but you got to be careful with expectations.
I think we got a little. Last week got a little out of control. I mean, I kind of may have pushed it a little bit too much, picking against the Cowboys, but
No, I'm not saying that it was not possible. The Giants definitely could have won last week, but I think that loss showed them, all right, we got to take a step back and realize, all right, we're 2-1.
Absolutely.
We could have been 0-3. They're 2-1.
You're right. No, that's very, very fair. But I think this is the kind of game to get them back on track before a critical 2-week stretch after this one. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some alarm bells ringing. I mean, we'll be definitely flashing the alarms on episode 27 of my show if that indeed comes up here with the Bears and the Giants. And then next, Nick, this actually has become arguably the game of the week when you look at it. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars now starting to become like America's team in this spot.
This is fun.
Right? I mean, they've now, they're 2-1. You look at it. I mean, they even in the game they lost against the Commanders, they were in it. They now travel to play arguably the best team in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, through 3 weeks. Eagles are at home. They're 6.5-point favorites. Spiro Ditas, Jay Feely, Aditi Kinkabella have the call here on the NFL and CBS. Nick, 6.5 points Eagles are laying in this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my pick. I can't remember what the line was when we did the game. I think it might have been a little less, maybe. But I like the Eagles. I've been very public about this too. I think the Eagles are going to be there for the long haul all season. I just like Jalen Hurts. I think he is. Him and AJ Brown have been on tap. They're probably the number one wide receiver quarterback tandem so far in the league. I know that's a bold statement. I know there's a lot of great tandems out there. They're just on the ball. And as much as the Jaguars are putting up a fight, and like we said, we think 7 wins and they're going to win the AFC South, which is kind of ridiculous and insane. Yep. You got to take the Eagles. The Eagles are the better team. I'm taking a cover.
Yeah. See, what the Jags did last week was incredible. I think Hank and Maurice Jones-Drew were, by the way, the only 2 people that picked the Jaguars to win outright. So give him credit. Look, Hank picked the Jags outright, and he was absolutely right. Of course, if I knew all the injury woes, it could have been a possibility. But if you remember when we were on the air last week doing these picks, that line jumped down so fast, it was unbelievable. Now,
it changed, yeah.
It went from 7-3 on Friday. That's what was crazy about it. And they knew what they were doing there because the Chargers didn't look like themselves at all in that one. So you do have to give Jacksonville credit. But let's also be fair, too. That was, like I said, depleted Chargers team and a fan base out there that, will not make as much noise as this Phillies team. This is an entirely different situation here, going against arguably the best team through 3 weeks. The Eagles defense, we talk about Jalen Hurts in the offense, but the defense ranks 6th in pass defense, 2nd in sacks. The Jaguars defense, they've been very good through 3 games. That is no question, but it has not faced a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts. And because this game is also inside of a touchdown, I'm taking the Eagles by a touchdown. So give me them to win and cover against Jacksonville in the Doug Peterson revenge game. Hank is going to take Jacksonville to cover. He thinks Philly.
Wait, you mean Jacksonville plus the points?
Yes, he's saying he wouldn't be shocked if they pull it off again, but not sure if they could do it in Philly. So he's with it. He kind of agrees with me in that regard, but he's going to take the Jacksonville plus 6.5. So Indy to win, but Philly to win, Jacksonville to cover in this matchup. I think very quietly one of the best games of the week.
You have a guy, and like we said in Doug Peterson, the revenge game. If to pick someone to win, it definitely would be him, since he's won a Super Bowl in Philly.
And don't kid yourself, coaching is making such a difference down there in Jacksonville. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, another year in the league. I mean, he looks more comfortable in 3 games this week than he did throughout his entire rookie season. He didn't really feel comfortable last year, I think, until the very last game against the Colts. So that's great to see as well.
When you have the worst coach in all of football.
yeah, that whole situation, I think, and that's why I love Doug Peterson going there. Look, Jacksonville, they win this game, Nick. I mean, they are making they are telling the league that they are for real. if they can go down there and they can beat the Chargers, who I had them going to Super Bowl 57, and Philadelphia, who arguably right now is the best team through 3 weeks. I mean, that's definitely a very, very bold statement, no matter what the situation is, for sure. Nick, it's time to get to your game. It's Zach Wilson's making his season debut here for the New York Jets, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Zach Wilson against Mitchell Trubisky. It's a game that screams for Greg Gumbel, Adam Archuleta, and A.J. Ross on the NFL on CBS. Steelers at whatever that their home stadium is called, 3.5-point favorites at home.
I just and by the way, I had that same issue. I'm trying to remember what the name of the Steelers stadium is, but you really think I'm going to pick them? You really think it's going to change my thoughts on the Jets this week?
You don't think Zach Wilson returning gives them a little bit of a spark?
By the way, the name of the stadium is Aquashore Stadium.
All right, I'll probably get used to that by week 17. So that's
exactly. Me too.
Yeah.
As much, and the guys and I went over this on our show, and they kept saying to me, "Well, it's Mitchell Trubisky," and I'm like, "Well," I turned around and said, "It's Zach Wilson." This is such a bad quarterback matchup. If you're watching the NFL on Red Zone, do you think this game is really going to be shown? No one's going to care. I mean, I have to say, Aquashore, the former known as Heinz Field, is tough to play in. It's one of the toughest stadiums to play in. Whether it's Mitchell Trubisky, whether it's Ben Roethlisberger, or it's take your pick quarterback. The Jets are in a tough situation. I mean, injuries. I like Garrett Wilson. I think he's turned out to be a nice young wide receiver, but that's not going to be enough. I'm taking the Steelers to cover. This is not even a discussion.
So I think I'm kind of in agreement with your guys over there at Empty the Bench, because it is Mitchell Trubisky, and I kind of trust Zach Wilson more. And what I mean by that is I trust the system that he's in a little bit more. And I did not like the Jets at all last week. I think that was such a bad matchup for them going up against the Bengals. But here's why I think the Jets actually have a chance here. Steelers don't have much experience against Wilson because they haven't really played him. His mobility, he creates challenges for the defense that's still struggling to find an identity without TJ Watt. That is a big deal that Watt's not in this matchup. I think why it's great for Zach is because I think this is also a great spot for Breece Hall, and especially against that Steelers run defense. So we have it here at 3.5. I know it's just there, but it did jump up to 3.5. That hook is a big, big deal. And Nick, upset special number 2. I did this when they played the Browns in that AFC North. I'm going to do it again here. Give me the Jets to win in an upset special 20-17 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because you know what? At the end of the day, who am I going to trust more? I mean, now you want to say, should I trust Mike Tomlin over Robert Saleh? Yes. But I'm going to trust Zach Wilson with Breece Hall, who I think is going to actually have a big game in this one. And I think the Jets get away to get this done 20-17. Yeah, you won't. If you're watching Red Zone, they won't be going to this game much because it's going to be kind of on the low scoring end. But I think they actually have enough to get this one done. So give me the Jets in an upset special 20-17 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the rumblings for Kenny Pickett there in Pittsburgh going to be coming sooner rather than later. By the way, Hank's going to agree with you. He has the Steelers to win and cover against the Jets, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going upset special. Give me the Jets plus 3.5 at, again, whatever that place is called. And again, folks, by week 17.
Aquashore Stadium.
Aquashore Stadium, yes. So that's where I'm going at. And that wraps up the early window for week number 4. Late window gets started right here in Carolina. Well, actually up north in Carolina in North Carolina as the Arizona Cardinals take on the Carolina Panthers. Now, this line has fluctuated a ton because I was looking at it the other day. You had the Panthers who were favored by 1.5, and now it's all of a sudden gone to the Cardinals favored by 1. So pretty much a pick-em in this one with Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, and Shannon Spake having the call here on the NFL on Fox. Nick, not much really to break down in this matchup. When I look at this, the difference comes down to the quarterback play. Kyler Murray, I think, can do it all. And I think he'll actually run for good yardage. Baker Mayfield is 31st in the NFL in completion percentage. And Christian McCaffrey, again, second week in a row, he's been limited in practice. I think last week the Panthers had a good game, but I think it was also against the Saints team that was just reeling. I tell you, I don't like this matchup at all for the Panthers. I'm taking Arizona to win and cover, and I think they win this one by 10.
This game, I would stay away from from a betting standpoint.
Yeah.
I if you're looking for a game, there's way more easier games that you can look at. Originally when we did the line, it was Panthers -1.5. So the line, this is the first time I've ever seen a line change this drastic. Now some of the other books still have the Panthers as the favorite. I'll put it this way. The Cardinals better win this game. They better win this game because they're struggling. They're losing games that they should not be losing. Kyler Murray needs to wake up with his $45 million a year contract that he just signed. Maybe he needs to go maybe we need to go put that homework clause back in and actually focus on the field. I had taken them plus the points anyway when they were the Panthers, and I will still say they better win this game. So I am taking them to cover, and they better win.
Yeah, Cardinals had a weird season, so they got blown out by the Chiefs, and then they also had the game against the Raiders, who they were down 20-0 too, and they came back and won that one. Then they lost to the Rams, even though the Rams didn't look that great, even though they won that one. So they've had kind of a weird year. You could tell that DeAndre Hopkins, they're missing desperately, and I think they're just trying to tread water here until he comes back. But I think this is a game they can win even without him. The Panthers have so many problems right now. And again, I just don't think this is a good matchup for Baker. I think, again, alarms will be going off if Arizona doesn't get this done. But I think they do in Carolina to start the late window in this one. This one, wow, this is the biggest one of the week here. The New England Patriots take on the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau. It's Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, and Tracy Wolfson on the NFL on CBS. Nick, at one point, the Packers were 11-point favorites. I think you guys, when you did your picks on ETB, had it at 10. It's now gone down to 9 against Tom. Oh, no, wait, let me take that back. Not Tom Brady. Mac Jones. Oh, wait, no, not Mac Jones. Brian Hoyer. That was intentional, folks. Brian Hoyer and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, this was my lock of the week. And Tom and Nick from my show were completely shocked when I picked this game. There were so many other games. I said, look, the Packers are the better team in this matchup. Even if it was Mac Jones, Aaron Rodgers is obviously still the better quarterback, even though he's making witches brews and drinking weird stuff, and he thinks he's casting spells on people. Anyway, I like the matchup even more with Mac Jones being out and Brian Hoyer starting. Now, is Lazard healthy? I don't know. He was having heat stroke in Tampa Bay almost like every other player because it was 100+ degrees in Tampa Bay last week. The Patriots are banged up, and now with no starting quarterback, I like this as the lock. The Packers cover.
Yeah, see, I'll tell you this. The line feels a little bit too high, and it's not because of the Patriot woes, but it's really because of the Packer offense. You know, they're only averaging 16 points a game. I mean, they only scored 14 in their win against the Bucs down there in Tampa last week. But as I said, this line got up to as high as 11. And can the Packers score 16 and still win by 10? Yes, because it's Brian Hoyer for the New England Patriots. Packers 6, and you know what? Let's just put it like that score. 16-6, Packers win. So give me the Packers -9 in this one. And Hank's also going to take the Packers as well. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but he also likes the Cardinals in that matchup to start the late window against the Panthers. So we're all in agreement here. I know Nick's taking that as your lock. If I was doing a lock thing, this one would well, again, it's such a high number, especially for the Packers team that doesn't score an offense. So I don't know if I would touch this one like that, but I get where you're coming from as well. Speaking of crazy lines, so these next couple of games here, the lines are kind of interesting. We go to Vegas, an AFC West matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders with Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins on the call in the NFL and CBS. The Las Vegas Raiders are 2.5-point favorites at home. And Nick, that's kind of an interesting line when you look at the way the two teams have been, maybe because the Raiders are the home team, but look at it. They could be down their top 3 cornerbacks. And both teams, both quarterbacks, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, they still look uncomfortable in their new offenses. You know, Carr's not finding his open receivers, even when it's Devontae Adams. Wilson's numbers, they're down all over the rate, career low. I think, though, the more favorable matchup is with Russell Wilson and the Broncos. So I am taking Denver +2.5 to win in Vegas. And boy, I mean, the other thing too is who am I trusting coach-wise? Am I trusting Hackett or Josh McDaniels? Oh, that
Ouch.
one I'm going to pass on that. So I'm just going to go based on matchup here, and I think the Broncos have the more favorable matchups. Give me them plus 2.5.
Yeah,
Hank is also taking the Broncos to win in kind of an upset special. So upset special number 3 here for me is the Broncos plus 2.5 against the Raiders.
yeah, this is a brutal matchup. I mean, it's like Hank said over the last couple of weeks, when you have hack in your name and you actually play like a hack, then you're in trouble. Like you said, Russell Wilson has been struggling. The wide receivers have been struggling. They're having fumble issues, including right near the end zone, which, by the way, I wish they would change that dumb rule that if you fumble into the end zone on your, into the other team's territory, you don't lose the ball. Maybe you just lose a down instead of it being a touchback. I think it's one of the dumbest rules in all of the NFL. But I don't like the Raiders. And we all came into this year thinking the Raiders were going to be much better. Now,
I thought they were going to be improved, yeah. But again, in this division at the same time, I mean, somebody was going to have to be in for a disappointing year. And right now, these two are both having disappointing years.
But if I had to take my choice, I'm going to trust Russell Wilson each time over Derek Carr. Derek Carr does not look good right now. So give me the Broncos plus 2.5.
Yeah, so we're all in agreement on that one. And then we get to Sunday Night Football here on NBC. We're waiting all day for Sunday night, and I'll tell you what, this is going to be interesting. It's Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, Melissa Stark special as the Kansas City Chiefs travel to Tampa Bay. We didn't know this game was going to be in Tampa until just recently, and this game will be at home in Tampa.
I'm shocked. I'm really shocked.
I really am too. And, there's going to be a lot of emotion down there in Tampa as Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another thing I find interesting, Nick, and I don't know what your thoughts are, the Bucs, I mean, it's pretty much a pick 'em, but the Bucs are a 1-point favorite.
Yeah, I mean, the wide receiver core for Tampa is banged up big time. They don't have Godwin, at least from what we're hearing. They don't have Godwin. And then you have other guys that are really banged up. Also, you get misplaced for a week in Miami having to practice. What do we say about players? They're creatures of habit. So the Chiefs need to wake up too. They had a bad loss, and they need to wake up. So I'm taking the Chiefs +1 here.
I totally agree. I think the problem is the Bucs offense, and because of their injuries, you know what? They've only had 3 offensive touchdowns in 3 games. And I think they need all hands on deck if they're going to keep pace with this Chiefs team. And like I've said, and one of the things also, I actually don't think the Chiefs defense has been that bad. And I thought they were good. That was one of the big concerns I had with them going into this year.
The offense.
Was that?
It's the offense that's struggling.
Well, I mean, they're averaging 29.3 a game now. Last week was a struggle against the Colts, but I think that was a fluke. It's tricky because it's very hard to see a Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady team lose 2 straight games, and somebody's going to after Sunday night. But I just think the Chiefs are the more explosive team, and also their offensive line, they've only given up 2 sacks this year. And I know the Bucs defense has been great, but I just don't think they give enough to score. So this will probably be the lowest scoring Mahomes-Brady matchup that we've seen. But I think the other thing too is I think Kansas City's playing Tampa at the right time, given all their injuries and stuff. I actually think they win this game by 2 scores, something like 30-17. So give me the Chiefs +1 on Sunday night. Hank's also going to take the Chiefs +1. So we are all in agreement as we wrap up the day on Sunday. And then we close it out in San Francisco. It's the Rams and 49ers. It's Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salter special on Monday Night Football on ESPN. Again, another interesting line, Nick. The 49ers are a 1.5 favorite at home.
Yeah, I mean, I said this to you beforehand. The Rams wide receiver core is in shambles almost. It is banged up. It's basically Cooper Kupp and take your pick for afterward.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford has kind of been up and down. He's still kind of recovering from the injury. He looks good at some points. He looks really bad at some points. We've seen him throw some really bad picks. I do like Jimmy G in this sense because, again, I feel like the 49ers are more of a airball type team, not a run team. Trey Lance was more spreading the football, keeping the ball on the ground. But I just think the Rams are too good offensively, in my opinion at least. So I'm going to take the plus points on the Rams.
6 straight regular season wins for the 49ers in this matchup. Garoppolo 6-1 as a starter career against Los Angeles. We talked about the Bengals having a Super Bowl hangover. Well, I think so have the Super Bowl champion Rams. And I think this 49ers defense is actually well equipped to slow down the Rams offense. Now, I think that Cooper Kupp, he could go off for a big game in this one. But like you said, who else do they really have besides him? And especially if they're going to double team him, who else are you going to really going to have?
I mean, Van Jefferson is out with an injury. I mean, that's a big deal.
Big deal. We haven't really heard his name mentioned a lot early on in the first couple of weeks of the year. But I also think San Francisco, when you look at it, they've allowed just 28 points through 3 games. They're ranked number 1 in passing yards allowed and number 4 in rushing yards allowed. It's more of a favorable matchup to me for the Niners. I'm going to take them to win and cover to wrap up the week. And Hank's going to agree with you. He's taking the Rams to win to wrap up the week. But that's kind of an interesting when you look at it. But I think it's kind of a more favorable matchup. And again, that could be a situation where you're playing the Rams at the right spot. Maybe it takes them a while to get it going. But, right now, after this, we'll be 4 weeks in. We're not a quarter of the way through, but we're just about there as there's a 17-game schedule. But
isn't that crazy, though, that we're this far in already?
Nick, every year, despite the fact they even added an extra week, this league goes by quicker and quicker. When I do my college picks, we're 5 weeks in. We're just over a month into the college season. We're about a third of the way through there. It every year, this goes by quicker and quicker. Before you know it, it's going to be Halloween. Then it's going to be Thanksgiving. Then it's going to be Christmas. And then, bam, it's 2023. Heck, I'm already planning on you, me, and everybody doing Super Bowl 57 preview show already before you know it.
I know. This is crazy. By the way, Halloween is usually that first marker of the NFL season to see where your team is going. If you're 500 or, dare I say it, worse, then you're out of the playoffs pretty much if you are not at least 500.
Yeah, it's also going to depend on your division, too. Like, you know what? I think the AFC South is in a more favorable spot because there's no great team there. But, you look at some of these other divisions like the AFC West. That's why, unless the Broncos or the Raiders get things going, they're gonna take themselves out of it already. And so, after this, will be 4 games in. We'll see where everybody is, and then we'll find out as we get through the next month. But yeah, it'll be very interesting. Again, there are 3 big lines, if you can even say big. I mean, there's 1.9, there's a 6.5, and there's a 4, and other than that, and I know there's a 5, but other than that, I mean, they're all pretty close, which just goes to show you where we've been at here through the first 4 weeks. But should be another great week of football. Big ones for both of our locals, for your Jets and my Giants, and throughout the league. And of course, we've already got a big deal to talk about with the Dolphins with Tua, which we'll mention on both of our shows coming up next week. And then before you know, we'll be back here to do it all again. So Nick, thanks for filling in. We'll be looking forward for you on Beyond the Bench and on Empty the Bench here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Hank and I will be back with you. Well, as long as my voice stays like this, we'll be back on Tuesday. And then you might even see me a couple of other points throughout the week. So for Nick Morgasen and for Hank Indictor, I'm Johnny Montalbano. Enjoy your football, everybody, and we will see you next week.